Theodore. He's a tugboat and a friendly tugboat too. A friendly tugboat too. Oh, Theodore likes to do the things that friendly tugboats do.
Hello. I'm sending postcards to all my friends today. This next one is to my good friend, Captain Jerome. Who's Captain Jerome? Well, Captain Jerome was the captain on my first ship. Here. See? Yeah. Captain Jerome and I, well, we've been friends for a long time. But at first, I found it kind of hard being friends with him. Well, it's not always easy making friends. Oh, I wish I'd known Hank back then. See, Hank, he knows how to make friends. He didn't always, though. You know, that's a good story for today. Early one morning, Theodore and Hank went puffing off together into the big harbor. It was a cheery kind of day, a bright, beamy day, the kind of day to have fun with your good old friends. There's Blue Nose, smiled Hank. She hardly makes any sound when she floats. Hi, Theodore, whistled Blue Nose as she sailed past. Theodore tooted back. Theodore, said Hank, tugging up closer, what do you like best about Blue Nose? I like her sails. Hi, Theodore. Jim Dandy Day. Yes, sirree, Bob. That was Owen, the oil rig now. Hi, Owen, called Theodore. Theodore, repeated Hank, trying to get his friend's attention. But it seemed like everyone in the whole harbor wanted to say hello to Theodore. Theodore, said Hank, everyone in the harbor is your friend. Well, yes, said Theodore. Yes, I guess they are. I wish I had more friends, said Hank. Everyone likes you, said Theodore. It's not the same, Hank went on. I don't have anyone to tell important stuff to. What important stuff? Asked Theodore. Just then, Rebecca, the research vessel, whistled, hello, to Theodore. Would you like to explore the harbor with me today? She called. Sure, Theodore whistled back. It's not important, said Hank quietly. What's that, Hank? Called Theodore, but Hank was already floating away. Hank can act strangely sometimes, thought Theodore. I wonder, Hank said softly, how do you make a friend? The next morning, Hank was floating at his dock when he saw Rebecca cruise past. Rebecca would be a nice friend to have, Hank said out loud. Uh-huh, said a voice. It was Donald Duck. Of course, uh-huh is all Donald ever says. How should I make friends with Rebecca, wondered Hank. Now, Hank knows that Rebecca, the research vessel, is very smart and knows lots of things about the harbor. Maybe I can show her how smart I am. Uh-huh, said Donald. Rebecca, shouted Hank. Wait up! Wait up! Hello, Hank, said Rebecca. Well, what are you doing? Asked Hank. I'm doing some research, answered Rebecca. I'm doing some reslurp too, announced Hank, trying to sound extra smart. You are? Said Rebecca. Sure, said Hank. I'm re-splurging, how fast I can go. Hank began making a speedy turn around Rebecca. Well, that's very nice, Hank, said Rebecca dizzily. And I was also resurfacing how I can go backwards, blurted Hank. Look out, shouted Rebecca. Too late. Hank bumped right into Bingham Buoy. a small bell buoy in training. "Hank," called Rebecca, "are you all right?" Well, the only thing hurt was Hank's pride, I have to say. He really wanted Rebecca to think he was really smart. But right now, he felt really silly. He didn't know what to say next. All he could think of to do was bump Rebecca too, and hurry off without another peep. "Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy," he said to himself. "Why did I do that?" It looked like making friends was going to be harder than he thought. "Maybe I could be funny," Hank was saying to Donald Duck. He was trying to figure out a new way to make friends with Rebecca. "Everyone says I'm funny." "Uh-huh," said Donald. "Maybe I could tell Rebecca a joke," Hank went on. "Uh-huh," said Donald. "Thanks, Donald," said Hank. "That was lots of help." "Uh-huh," said Donald. Now, just about the same time, Theodore and Rebecca were working together looking for seaweed samples. Hank came huffing over, rolling his eyes and making his funniest face. "Rebecca! Rebecca!" he shouted. "Look at me! Look at me!" "Hank," said Rebecca, who was very surprised. What are you doing?" Hank had stuck an old bell on his hat and big strips of seaweed under his nose for a mustache. "Ha, ha!" hooted Hank. "Isn't it funny, Rebecca?" It's very funny," replied Rebecca, who really didn't know what else to say. "Knock, knock!" shouted Hank. "Hank," began Rebecca, "maybe you could wait until Theodore and I have finished our work?" "Seashells!" hollered Hank. "Seashells who?" asked Rebecca politely. "Well, seashells, shall see, I," stuttered Hank. I think I forgot that one." Rebecca turned back to talk to Theodore. "Why did the tugboat cross the harbor?" Hank interrupted again. No, that's the other joke." Rebecca turned around to face Hank again. "Hank," she said firmly, "Theodore and I are working right now. I'd be happy to talk to you when we're finished." Well, Hank suddenly wished he could just sink to the bottom of the harbor like a submarine. And without another word, he backed up and floated away. "Hank?" called Theodore. But Hank didn't answer. "First he went round and round in circles and bumped into Bingham Boy," said Rebecca, staring at Hank. "He did?" said Theodore. "Yes," replied Rebecca, "and then he bumped into me." "He what?" said Theodore. "He did," Rebecca went on. "And he had an old bell on his head," said Theodore, "and seaweed under his nose." "He's acting quite strangely," concluded Rebecca. "And he seems like such a nice tugboat." "Oh, he is nice," said Theodore, staring out towards his friend. But he had to admit that Hank did seem to be acting, well, very strangely lately. And right then and there, he decided to find out why. Well, Theodore found Hank floating by himself near Willie's Island. He motored along quietly with his friend for a moment. "Hank, is something the matter?" he asked finally. "No," replied Hank right away. "I don't know," he added. guess I wanted to make friends with Rebecca. But I guess I can't. Well, why not? Asked Theodore. Making friends is hard, answered Hank. Theodore, how did you make friends with Rebecca? Well, said Theodore, it didn't seem too hard. It didn't? Said Hank. No, replied Theodore. We just started talking. But how did you start talking? Hank went on. Well, said Theodore, thinking, I guess I asked Rebecca a question. And then she asked me a question. And before I knew it, we were just talking. And now we talk all the time, just like you and me. Talking about what, Theodore? Oh, I don't know, replied Theodore. Just stuff. Stuff, shouted Hank. See, that's what I want to talk about. And suddenly he went scurrying off. Hank really does act strangely sometimes, said Theodore quietly. Uh-huh, said a voice. Rebecca was floating near her dock at the Oceanic Institute when Hank came hurrying over. Hi, Rebecca, he called. Hello again, Hank, said Rebecca. Well, for a moment, Hank didn't know what to say. Just then, Blue Nose sailed by, her sails billowing in the breeze. Rebecca, how come Blue Nose hardly makes any sound when she floats? Asked Hank. Blue Nose doesn't have an engine like you and me, explained Rebecca. The wind pushes her along. What do you like best about Blue Nose? Asked Hank. I guess I like her sails the best, replied Rebecca. What do you like, Hank? Oh, her sails too, smiled Hank. They're so beautiful when the wind fills them up. They really are, smiled Rebecca. Hank, she said after a moment, would you like to explore the harbor with me today? Sure I would, shouted Hank right away. And so Hank and Rebecca went puffing off into the big harbor together. It was a cheery kind of day, a bright, beamy day, the kind of day to have fun with your good old friends, and your new friends too. It wasn't so hard for Hank to make a friend after all. And you know, it wasn't really hard for me to make friends with Captain Jerome either. Ah, there he is. My old captain. Because, you know, there was something that we both liked to do. Ah, I think you know what that is. Huh? My old captain. Well, it's time that I finish writing my postcard to the captain. Thanks for visiting us all here in the big harbor. We'll see you all again next time. Bye-bye. Dear Captain Jerome, guess what I'm writing this postcard with?